Hi everyone, I'm Johan and this is Orson and you're watching Go Ahead and Make Me.
Go ahead and make me.
How are you doing? I hope you're well. Here in Australia we're no longer in lockdown, so we can move around a bit more freely and we don't even have to wear masks anymore. So that's a big plus, but that doesn't guarantee anything about the next months or indeed beyond. I hope wherever you are that you're healthy and happy and coping with the circumstances that you have to deal with. Of course, we're all anxious about all of this to end, and at some point it must. I mean, let's just focus on that. At some point we'll return to a version of normal. In the meantime, we can spend our time making some nice projects like the ones I've got here for you. I've got 3 projects for you this time. One of them is a simple bag that you can make. It's ideal for people who have never sewn a zipper and are a bit scared of it because it can be quite intimidating. This is the easiest thing, and I'll show you how to do it, and it looks fantastic, and in the end of it you'll have a lovely little bag that you can use for all kinds of things. You can use it as a project bag, a toiletries bag, of course as a gift, be lovely. The second gift or project or item that I'm going to show you how to make is another very simple one, even though it looks kind of complicated. It's a pincushion, and it looks like it might be really complicated with all the geometric shapes, but it's actually very easy to make as well. The third one is a yarn bowl. Now I've seen these made on YouTube in many tutorials, but they all sort of follow the same method, and I came up with something else that might actually make it look a bit nicer than the ones you might see on other videos. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. We've got 3 projects. I hope you'll enjoy it. Here we go. First, let me tell you the materials you're going to need to make this bag. Preferably 2 contrasting fabrics, like so. We've got 2 contrasting fabrics here, one of them with foxes, one of them with dots. They sort of match. They don't have to match. You could even just use 1 solid fabric instead of 2, but I think the band at the top makes it look that extra little bit nicer. So that's the fabric you need, and then for the lining for the inside to make it a bit more sturdy, I'm using this type of canvas upholstery type fabric. It's a lot thicker than your normal cotton, so that it will give it the shape that it needs. Then of course we need a zipper. Color doesn't really matter as long as it's not too too radically different from the colors that you're using in the fabric. You don't even need a measuring tape or anything to measure, because you don't actually need to measure anything. And of course, a sewing machine. The first thing you do is you work with the fabric that you've chosen to be at the top, to be this decorative band. So in this case, that'll be this one. You just cut out sort of, you take that fabric and you cut out a square approximately this size. Then you cut it in half. You don't have to measure anything. It'll come out right in the end. So that's the first thing you do. The point is that you're going to attach them to the ends of the zipper. You get your zipper and one of the pieces that you just cut out, and you put them together like so, so that the good side of the fabric is facing the zipper. Now all you do is sew where the zipper meets the fabric, that's where you sew. Let's do that. I like the back stitch as well in this case, because you want it to be sturdy as possible. That's one side. Then, when you have it sewn together like this, you fold it over. Get rid of these long threads. You fold it over to the other side. Then you make a little fold here, like so. You make it match the other part of the fabric, so that it looks like this, and you sew it on this side as well. Now you do the same on the other side with the other piece that you cut out. It's a little bit trickier because here you have these two separate pieces and you have to keep them together as much as possible. So again, we put the fabric at the end of the zipper, and we sew this line. So you end up with a zipper that looks like this on both sides. And now what you do is you simply cut off the excess on either side of the zipper. You just cut it here and here, so that it looks like that. You don't have to worry about the seams that are not closed, because they'll be buried in the bag once you've finished it. So there's no problem there. So this is what it should look like in the end, your zipper. So there's the zipper. Now get the fabric that we're going to use for the top part of the bag. I'm going to lay it here alongside the zipper, and that's the only measurement you're going to do. You just take the length of the zipper and you make a little cut here, make it a little more generous than the zipper itself. You just a little snip there. See, it's a little bit longer than the zipper itself. That's what you have to do. And then you cut it. Now, you might think that you should measure before cutting, but you'll see once it's all put together, it really, if you've got a steady hand and you can cut in a straight line, then you really don't need to measure. Of course, if you're still not confident enough to do that, or you just prefer being extra precise, then you can always measure it. It just takes more time, that's all. See, because here now, I have got two pieces. I'm sure that if you would measure them accurately, you would find that they're not exactly the same size. Doesn't matter. And now, so we have these two, and now for the contrasting fabric for the bottom part of the bag. We take that fabric, and again we do the same thing, except now we use the fabric that we've already cut as the measurement, like so. Give it a little nip here, a nip. And this part of the bag, I'll just show you the finished one again. That's this part, so it's going to be bigger than that. Of course you can play around with that. You can make this part broader and this one more narrow. It's just, you know, you can be creative in all the measurements. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so now we've got slightly larger pieces of fabric for the bottom part of the bag. And what we'll do now is simply make two sets of this one attached to this one, and likewise this one attached to this one, just sewing in a straight line. So now you have two panels that are stitched together like so. It will create both sides of your pouch or bag, whatever you want to call it. Then we need two pieces of the canvas or any other sturdy fabric that you might use, and we have to cut the exact same size, and then we face them like so, with the print sides out. So this is the canvas. It's going to be the inside of the bag, and this is the outside. We'll need two of those. Here's the other one. Now you can baste these panels together. You don't have to. The canvas is heavy enough to keep both of them in place, so you don't really need to, but if it makes you feel better, of course, go ahead and baste it. You could even use some fabric glue to baste the two panels together, but it's not really necessary. Now the next step is the most exciting step for people who've never used zippers in their sewing projects before, because this is the moment when you're going to attach the zipper to the fabric. Now we take the panel with both sides, make sure they match, and then take the zipper, and what we're going to do is sew all along the zipper and attach it here. Now the one thing you have to be very careful about is that you put it on the right way, by which I mean is that you will sew it like this, so that then later it turns out like this, and the zipper is on the right side, the outside. So let's do that. So now the zipper is attached to one side of the bag, and as you can see, it'll look like this in the end. So now that we've attached it to one side, let's attach it to the other side. Once you've attached it to both sides, your project should look like this, with the zipper in the middle. See, these are the edges. Now all we need to do is fold it over, and then we sew just all along the edge of the bag. Let's do that. So now we've sewn all around the edges, and now comes the big trick, and we turn it inside out. And then we can finally see if we did everything right. This is usually the moment when you discover mistakes that you make, and you're like, oh no, I have to unpick all that. But that's not going to happen, because this is an easy project, and I'm sure you'll be able to do it with no problems. Just push those corners out a little bit, as much as possible. And they don't need to be pointy, they'll always be round, but you know, you do want them to be pushed out as much as possible. Now, here you have your bag. Now, this is already a nice bag in itself. You know, it's a useful bag, it's colorful, it's stylish, it's a lovely gift, but you can take it one step further and create these corners so that it can actually stand, you can actually create a bottom so that it can stand by itself, like so. In order to do that, we have to turn it inside out again. So what you do now is you take these corners and you fold it flat. There's a lot of fluff here. This canvas material that I chose is unravels very easily. So maybe in that sense it wasn't the best material, but in any case. So you take the corner of your bag and you make it flat, like so. You just, so that it's a triangle, and then on the machine you just sew a straight line like this across it, and you do the exact same thing on the other corner. You create a triangle, you flatten it, and at the same height that you chose on the other corner, you just sew a straight line. There we are. We sewed right across the triangle, and here as well on this side. Now we can turn it inside out again. And another miracle has happened, because now we've got a bottom in our bag, which enables it to stand, and also retains the shape a bit better as well. See, now your bag can just stand by itself because you created a bottom. How cool is that? My next project is one of my favorites because it is ultra simple to make. It looks like it isn't. It looks like it's quite intricate, and you have to measure all kinds of stuff, and it's geometric, and it looks like the sewing is complicated, but the opposite is true. All you need is a pack of mini charms. I know why I buy these, because I only ever buy them when they're on sale, and I never have any use for them, except when projects like this come along. You don't need to buy pre-cut mini charms. You can of course cut them yourself in this size or approximate size, because you don't have to make the exact same size that I'm making. You can make it either smaller or bigger. So all you need is these charms. Yeah, you can mix and match, of course. You can use your scraps. You can make it all just one pattern or one color, doesn't matter. Let me just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All we do is we got 5 of these, right? And we're just going to sew them together. That's the top. That's the top. What you see here, that's what that is. So let me show you. So that's 2 of the squares sewn together. I used a margin of about 1/2 centimeter. What you want to use is up to you, and as long as you're consistent in the margin that you use. So let's attach the third one. There we go. 3. Let's go for the 4th. Here we are, 4 sewn together, but we're going to sew 5 together. So I left a space for the 5th. And so what you're going to do is you're going to attach this to this, and then this to this. Right? Let's do that. So now we've attached 5. And it looks a bit weird, of course, because you can flatten it, which is the whole point, because we don't want it flat, we want it to look like this. And now what you do is you take another 5 and you attach them to these 5. Let me show you again. So now I've attached the second set of 5 to the first set of 5, but rather than just attaching it on one side, I'm going to also attach it to this side. Let me show you. And that's attached to 2 sides. So one square is attached to another square, but only on 2 of its sides. And you do that for every square. So let's go. So now we have 5 of these squares attached to the first 5 squares. See, like so. If you turn it inside out, just really quick for now, you can already see the top taking shape. See, these are the points that are on top here. That's what these points are going to be. And so now, I mean, it's just insane insanity. We're going to attach 5 more squares, but to the second row. And by attach, I mean we put them like so. Let's do that. Oh no, the whole machine got... What happened? Looks like I'm gonna have to rethread the machine. Gee. Did you do that, Orson? Did you play with the machine? So, now after you've attached the 3rd set of squares, it should look something like this, like a crown, before you turn it inside out. But before we actually turn it inside out, we're going to attach the 3rd row to itself, so, which means that all these purple ones, we will attach them to each other like so. And we do that with all of them. So all the purple ones will be closed up, and then you will find, when you've reached the 4th, I'm just simulating it here, when you've reached the 4th, that you already pretty much created the whole shape. The last one you will not attach, because you still have to, of course, be able to turn it inside out. So once we've attached 4 of these squares, we'll leave the 5th one open, and then we turn it inside out so that it's ready for stuffing. And then the final square we'll have to sew closed by hand, which is not a big deal, right? Everyone can do that. Okay, let's do that. And there it is. It's all closed up except for the one final 5th panel. So now we can turn it inside out, which is always an exciting moment. Whenever you have a project where you have to turn something inside out, that's when you always finally see the final shape of what you've been making all this time. So it's always a bit of an exciting moment. As I always do, you have to sort of push out the corners. In this case, I'm using a knitting needle. Nothing too sharp, of course, because then you will go through the fabric and you don't want that. As you can see, it's already taking the shape of the pin cushion as it's supposed to look like. There, we got the pointy ends, see? It's like... So now all we do is fill it with polyfill and we stitch up the final panel. So here it is, so here I've filled it as much as possible with this, the fiber fill. I recommend you do it as tightly as possible. Even when you think, oh, it's tight enough now, just add more, just add a little bit more. Because you want it to be as strong as possible, because after all, you or the person you're going to give it to is going to use it as a pin cushion, so you really want it to be very strong and sturdy. Now, when you think you really filled it up properly, you're ready to attach one of the sides of the remaining square to this side. And I'm using a very strong thread because it has to hold the whole thing together, and of course you can imagine it's under some tension after all the filling, so you really want it to be able to withstand that tension. All right. Okay, so now I've sewn one side and only have this opening left, and even now I think you should fill this space up with even some more polyfill. The more the better. You don't want it to be weak here and have a dent here, you just want the whole thing to be smooth, so just put in some more into that final hole before you close it up. Just fill your way. If there's room for more, fill it up. There, now it's pretty tight. And now you're ready to close it up completely and it'll be ready. Okay, let's do the final stitches. And so there's your pincushion. Now the third and final project is, it doesn't actually require an awful lot of sewing. It does require some sewing, but not much. It's this yarn ball. It's super handy for people who knit, because you put while you're knitting, you put the yarn in the ball and the thread goes through this opening so that when you pull it, it doesn't fall on the ground or gets into knots or whatever. So it's pretty handy. Plus that, of course, it's a nice object. It's just nice to look at. You don't even have to use it as a yarn ball, you can use it for whatever. Serving apples, I don't know, whatever. The reason I actually made one is because I do on occasion knit. I'm very bad at it, and I'm probably going to stop again because I'm not making an awful lot of progress and it's taken too much time. I mean, I can pretty much knit a scarf or a hat, I can do that, but beyond that, no. Anyway, the yarn ball. What you need for that is this. You can get it at any hardware store or department. It's simply cotton rope that people use for all kinds of things. That's your basic material for this ball. Now what you do, now the principle of this bowl is very simple. What you do is you coil the rope around itself, like so that it eventually forms a ball. Of course you have to shape it up. And while you do that, you wind yarn around the cord, which makes this effect, as you can see. Now, there's lots of tutorials online on how to do this. The start of it is actually very simple. You make a little loop like that, and you just start with your yarn and you just twist it around. You have to do it very tight. That actually goes for the entire project. Whenever you wind the yarn around the cord, you have to use strength. Now, this is what you end up with for starters. Then of course you want to start going around, and I'll show you how it's done on most other tutorials. They usually link the coils to its previous link, like so that you get this double thing, and then they continue with the yarn around and around, and then once again they hit a spot where they have to attach the circle to the previous circle. And so what you get as it goes along, you get all these long attachment pieces, and I thought there should be a simpler way to do this, and you should be able to avoid having those double yarn pieces. And so what I did is I simply used actual thread and needle to attach the ropes to each other. You don't actually see it when I'll show you up close. You don't see any of the stitching, and where you do see it, it's almost invisible. So it looks a lot neater than if you would use the other method. I've actually been working on one of these in the garden, and let me show you that. So in principle it's very simple. If you want to see more about what I meant with the other methods that you usually see, there's plenty of videos on YouTube. The only thing I'll have to tell you is that when you end it, you simply, you can make it bigger than this, you can make it broader than this. But when you get to the end, you just snip off the part where you want to end it. And in this case, I put some stretchy jersey around the end. And again, I just used a needle and thread to secure it, and I secured it the same way to this edge, and as you can see, it's super sturdy. Yeah, so I don't understand why people don't just use, or combine normal thread with the yarn, because the thread just disappears into the yarn, you don't see it. And you end up with a much smoother looking ball, as you can see. This takes about an afternoon to make, perhaps. So yeah, I mean, go ahead and try it. And especially fun in this case is that even though you see three colors, it's actually just one yarn, just one continuous piece. Actually, it's quite similar to this, which has different colors, because if you just keep going, you end up with these different colored ridges. So that's the yarn ball. So that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the projects that I've shown you, and if you did, then leave a comment. I read them all, I reply to all. Send an email, subscribe, thumbs up. I'm also on Instagram. The address is in the description below. So hope to see you next time. Bye bye. No. Did you do that, Orson? Did you play with the machine? Did you play with the machine, Orson? Did you play with the machine, Orson? No, I know you didn't. Oh gosh.